everybody. This is the news we are waking up to for Friday, February the 28th, 2025, day 1101 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. I'm Peter Alexievich, and we are like, wow, it's unbelievable. Since last Saturday night, the Russians have sent over 1,000 drones at the territory of Ukraine. Like the biggest drone attacks of the war. Why? Why now, right? I think it's because they are trying to squeeze the people of Ukraine into a concession. Let us win, and it'll all stop. And they have this mouthpiece in DC that is speaking their maximalist goals to the world as if these were reasonable things, as if one could have a just peace by handing Ukraine to Russia, rather than simply emboldening Russia to do it again, next time to Poland or Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, right? Who's to say? So last night, the Russians sent 208 attack drones, of which 107 were shot down. Another 97 were taken out with active countermeasures. That's 204 out of 208. That's a 98% interception rate. Amazing. And yet, the Russians keep doing it. This is $100 million night. No, it's not that much. Sorry, it's not that much. We don't really know, right? Like the Shaheds that they were getting from Iran directly were costing them a fortune. But it looks like the decoys that they're making are much cheaper, maybe $20,000 a piece. And at least half of these were decoys. It appears that about half of them coming in every night are decoys. And they're not working. They're not working because the Ukrainians can clearly tell them apart because they report them separately in their downed figures every day. So hint, hint, Russia, you can stop making the decoys. Ukraine can tell the difference. Now, this was great video, and I've never shown any video like this before. This is from the Ukrainian Armed Forces, from the General Staff. And you can see this is a night vision of a Shahed in flight, and boom, taken right out. Now, what it was taken out with, we don't know. Probably a Gepard or some other smaller arms kind of fire, because it appeared as though there was just that one ping. There was no real explosion, and the drone was disabled. But regardless, territorial defense and the mobile defense forces are out there every night guarding me in my sleep and everybody else. And we're very grateful, guys. Now, we have, I don't want to make too much of this, but it is important to recognize that Vladimir Putin is a man who lives in a world of his own creation. When he says something, it does not matter how ridiculous it is. 140 million Russians fall in line and believe the lie. And if I'm wrong, if there are some fucking Russians out there that don't, we'd love to hear from you, because you have been extraordinarily silent throughout this war. Now, one of his big points, right? Well, one of his stated goals when he invaded Ukraine was the removal of the Zelensky regime. And he has repeatedly said that Zelensky is an illegitimate dictator, which he got the president of the United States to repeat that lie recently, much to all of our chagrin. And here's a quote from him just on Russian state TV, January 28th. But due to Zelensky's illegitimacy, he has no right to sign anything. If Zelensky wants to take part in talks, I will delegate people who will conduct such talks. But the key issue is the ultimate signing of the documents, right? And Putin, by his own words, said Zelensky can't sign anything. He's illegitimate a month ago. Now, it was the ISW that pointed out that there's been a shift in his views. Just on the 24th, Putin seemed to acknowledge for the first time ever that Ukraine is a country of its own, with its own constitution, and that constitution has rules that say you can't hold elections during martial law. He acknowledged that on state TV just 4 days ago. That's a significant shift from the paradigm of lies that he has built about this war to something that looks like an honest appraisal of the opponent. Now, ISW made I have some quotes from ISW here. ISW noted it was the first time that Putin had acknowledged that Ukraine's constitution prohibits any elections when the country is under martial law. The ISW assessed that Putin's comments could be part of a plan to shift Moscow's rhetoric about Zelensky as a way for the Kremlin to, quote, explain to Russian domestic audiences his decision to engage in any future negotiations with Zelensky. Now, of course, dictators like Putin can reverse their position in a heartbeat, and normally people fall in line. But at this juncture, with Russia having suffered so much, we saw a really interesting pushback about the rare earths deal when Putin suggested that American companies could come into the occupied territories. The Russian mill blogger community went crazy. The idea of turning over these hard-fought resources to Western capitalist pigs by their commander-in-chief, they called a betrayal. A betrayal. Now, when the most ultra-nationalist guys, the guys you count on to be your voice in the world, say that they are betrayed by you, you should be concerned, because those are the guys that have all the guns. Let's not forget that. The ISW report went on to explain that Putin's claims that Zelensky is unpopular and harmful to Ukraine are attempts to drive a wedge between the legitimate government of Ukraine, the Ukrainian military, and its population, right? As well as to discredit Zelensky in the larger world, I would add. So the ISW is the source for this information, and that's the American think tank Institute for the Study of War, who we depend on for a lot of the insight into this conflict, or at least I do. Now here, I'll play the actual clip for you.
I said that? I can't believe I said that. Next
Look at that grin on Lion Uncle Scam's face. But here's the thing. He's repeating, when he called Zelensky a dictator, he's repeating his Russian handler's disinformation. The pushback was so great from elements inside his own party, he has to play dumb. Well, he doesn't really play dumb. He just is dumb, right? But the fact that these two lying liars are having to walk back their lies and take a perspective that is closer to some semblance of the truth for most of the world is a sign of their diminishing power, especially with Putin. Especially with Putin. Making these guys face the world as it really is rather than as they want it to be is key to deprogramming the many sycophants and goblins and ghouls that follow them without question. They've got to realize what world they're living in, or it will be bad for them. Now, Trump is doing everything he can to help the Russians, right? He's disbanded the task force to seize Russian assets. He's disbanded the task force to investigate Russians in the U.S. He's doing everything. Oh, he sanctioned the ICC, which was a big gift to Vladimir Putin and led to a lot of champagne corks getting popped. Now today, the day that Zelensky is supposed to be in D.C. to sign the rare earths deal, we are also supposed to hear official word that Trump is extending the Russia sanctions for 1 year. According to reporting in the Kyiv Post, a U.S. presidential document scheduled to be published today noted that sanctions on Russia placed in 2014, 2018, and 2022, right? You'll notice they do not mention the sanctions imposed in 2023 or 2024, must continue in effect beyond March 6, 2025 for another year. The actions and policies addressed in these executive orders continue to pose an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States. Now, we have not heard which sanctions will be continued. Just this generic statement. How serious the change in the keel of the Trump administration's push to vindicate Russia, we'll see when this document gets released today. And hopefully for tonight's live at 5, it'll be out by then, and we'll be able to do some analysis of it this evening. Zelensky and Putin easy mistake to make, right? Zelensky and Trump are set to meet in D.C. today and sign the rare earth minerals framework. For everybody who thinks that this is blackmail and extortion of Ukraine, remember, this is just a framework. It's just a framework. And when Zelensky signs it, we are hopeful that we are going to hear that U.S. military support will continue for the near term at least. That alone is worth signing the framework. The deal, who cares if it ever gets done? Who cares if it ever gets signed? Trump will have had his big press win. He got Zelensky to pay us back, just like he got Mexico to pay for the wall. It never happened. It never will happen. The same may be true of this bullshit. So keep your fingers crossed that we get some weapons flow restored to Ukraine out of it. To everybody in the UK, to all of the UK folks who watch this channel and with whom I interact on a regular basis, I would like to extend the sincere apologies of the United States of America for the treatment that Keir Starmer received at the hands of our boy Trump. It was outrageous. He essentially told him to shut the fuck up. And the look on Starmer's face of just disbelief was valid. Now, look, I think it hardly matters what they talked about. Starmer didn't get anything out of this deal. And he was so unimpressed by Trump and Trump's response that he's headed back to the UK and he's called an emergency meeting of 12 European leaders, one of the largest councils of European leaders, summoned by an individual nation who is not in the EU ever. So it'll be interesting to see I think what comes out of Sunday's meeting is going to be much more interesting than the shit way that a leader of one of our closest allies forever was just treated by the White House. Unreal. Now, one of my favorites, European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas, said the words, the true part out loud here. NATO is not the thing that Russia is afraid of. Russia is afraid of democracy expanding to Russia. That's what they fear. It is because we are afraid of Russia. And the only thing that really works, the only security guarantee that works is NATO's umbrella. Right? And that's why Ukraine needs to be in NATO. It is just that simple. It is just that simple. True and honest. Thank you, Kaja. Now, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un supervised a test launch of strategic cruise missiles and ordered full readiness to use nuclear attack capabilities, according to Reuters. For his part, Kim Jong-un was satisfied with the missile test, and he said the most complete deterrence and defense capability comes from possessing overwhelming offensive power. He's not wrong. Right? It's certainly the way the U.S. does things. the missiles apparently flew where they were supposed to and hit the targets. Each was in the air for over 7,000 seconds. What is that, about 100 minutes flight time? That's a good flight time. Each one of the missiles traveled about 1,500 kilometers, about 1,000 miles, not quite 1,000 miles, and are reported to have hit their targets. Now, all of that reporting is coming from North Korean state TV. So we don't have independent verification of the successful test of these weapons. But it would be, so this is the first ballistic missile test that they've run since January 25th, if I'm not mistaken, January 25th, I think. And that one was also successful. You'll notice the North Koreans had a history of unsuccessful missile launches and testing for the last decade. Now suddenly they're sending troops and equipment to Russia and their missiles are starting to work. That should terrify everybody, because you want to talk about a world of your own creation. Did you know that when this guy was born, all the birds in Korea sang in Korean? I kid you not. That is a story that they tell about this guy. And he doesn't shit, right? That's why he's so fucking fat, because he never takes a dump. This fucking guy, what are you going to do here? This is Georgescu, the pro-Russian candidate for president of Romania, who was arrested for creating a fascist organization, money laundering, illegal campaign finance, etc. Given a Nazi salute right outside after he was out on bail, outside the police station. I mean, come on. These people are openly signaling to each other who they are, what they are, and where they're headed. How anybody supports them is beyond me. Finally, a final funny for the day. It appears as though a Russian classroom that intended to send postcards, letters, and artwork to support the troops at the front, these are Russians, borrowed the Ukrainian Special Operations logo, which you can see features the trident and is very different from the Russian Special Forces Operations logo on the right there. The Ukrainian one on the left with the trident, the Russian one on the right there with the double-headed eagle looking both east and west. How this mistake was made by this Russian teacher, I don't know. Is this some sort of passive-aggressive Russian protest? I don't know. But I did think it was funny, and I thought some of you might find it amusing. All right, that's it for me. That's the news that we are waking up to for Friday, the 28th of February. I'm Peter Alexievich, and I'll see you in the live tonight.